Hey, welcome to Real Estate Resource. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I really hope you enjoy this video. Okay, so like I said, today's a little bit different. I know you guys saw the stuff I sent out and what I posted on Facebook. What I wanted to do was kind of a little Q&A. And if you guys are shy and don't have any questions, I have some stuff that I want to show you, a little different than what we normally do. But what I want to do is I have the chat, or you guys can unmute yourself and ask a question. I wanted to kind of go through the things that you guys are dealing with right now in real time. Issues you're running into with counteroffers, with writing offers, problems you have in negotiating using the contracts inside a transaction at the moment. So just kind of open it up as a forum for you guys, and with solving your issue, hopefully that means that we are solving other people's issues that have them and aren't sharing them. So we'll start with me opening it up to you guys right now. Really? Really, you guys are going to leave me hanging out there high and dry? Go ahead, Lulu.
I have a question as to how do you become like the first backup offer once the listing agent offers you, or you can offer yourself, right, Kyle? Or how does it work? Because I've never done
Well,
it.
really, ultimately, it's it really becomes the listing agent's choice on who's backup 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, whatever it is. It really becomes the listing agent's choice. So here's what happens. Let's say that there's a couple ways that it starts, right? So I am accepting the original offers from on my listing, right? From whoever's submitting, whoever's looking. And I find one offer that I love, but there's another one that's really close, right? It's like a 1A, 1B situation. So I want to create a backup offer for that 1B, right? That's what I want to have. And so what I can do is I can then counter the offer that I want to be the backup offer. And when I do that, I include this backup offer addendum that you guys should be seeing right now. And the backup offer addendum is going to state which backup position you're in. So as you see here, it says the agreement is in backup position number blank, right? So I can choose. So the right way to do it is if I'm listing agent and I say, okay, Antonio, I accepted an offer, but you are backup offer number 1. My counter offer should be all of the terms that I want for that offer to be accepted, but also include this backup offer addendum, which tells me which number I am. And then it says right here, because basically what I'm doing is I'm accepting your offer subject to it being a backup. And so what it says here is that you can cancel, you can do anything, or the seller can cancel, or the buyer can cancel, and you have so many days, right, to accept and make them the actual offer. So it says right here, if seller is unable to provide such written signed cancellation release to buyer by blank date, then either party may cancel. So I can put in an amount, a specified date, right? So for example, the offer I have accepted, their contingencies are up 17 days from when I accepted it. Let's say I'm accepting this backup offer, 3 days after I've accepted the others. I can put on there, hey, by this date, which is, 14 days, 17 days, whatever, from the acceptance of this backup offer. If I don't give you proof of cancellation of our original offer, then you have the right to cancel, or I have the right to cancel our agreement now, right? What used to happen is listing agents would accept an offer as a backup subject to cancellation of a previous offer, but then there was no deadline and there was really no acceptance. So this backup offer addendum, it kind of gives everybody a specific timeline to live by. Okay. But if I'm submitting an offer and I know that I'm submitting a backup, right? I call the listing agent. The listing agent says, "Hey, we already got an offer accepted, but we are looking at backup offers." Well, I could submit my offer with a backup offer addendum and assume that they're going to make me backup number one, write it that way, and then wait for a counter offer to come back. But most of the time, being a backup offer and what backup offer position you're in is the sole discretion of the listing agent. So I hope that answers your question, Lulu.
Yes.
Thank you. Angel, yes.
Okay, so I'm the listing agent, and I've received multiple offers on my listing, and I want to keep one as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
So I send back the backup offer addendum.
Mm-hmm.
Should I also include my counter offer for those?
Oh, you have to. You have to, because the backup offer addendum is basically saying that I've accepted your offer subject to the counter that I'm sending you and subject to it being a backup. So then what happens is, let's say that I did that with 3 different people. So I got to counter all 3 of them, right? It's going to be a multiple counter, obviously. And I'm going to attach the backup offer addendum as part of that counter. And then I'm going to dictate one is backup number 1, one is backup number 2, one is backup number 3. Okay? And when I do that, they're going to all sign and accept. And so I'm going to get it back, right? And then what's going to happen is I'm going to, if, for instance, the one that I'm in escrow with, the first choice, falls out, then I'm going to call, Angel as backup number 1 and say, hey, this one fell out. It's got cancellation. We're ready to open escrow with you tomorrow. Do you guys still want it? And if they say no, then okay, great. Can you send me a cancellation of your offer? And then I'm moving on to backup number 2. And if backup number 1 says, yeah, I'm in, right? Backup number 1 says, yes, we want it. We're in. And now I can just go right to escrow and open escrow. I don't have to do a new counter. I don't have to get a new offer. I don't have to do anything. We've already agreed on all of our terms. So I can just open escrow. And then guess what I'm going to do with backups number 2 and 3? I'm going to send them cancellation instructions.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Patricia, you had a question.
What if I reach out to backup number 1 and they don't respond for a cancellation form? Can I go on to the next one, or do I need to have that form?
No, you're just canceling. There is no escrow open. There is no deposit. There's nothing. So you're just canceling, and you send that cancellation, and it's done. And you move on to the next one. So when you fill out the cancellation form, you fill at the top, you're canceling because they were a backup offer, and the other offer didn't cancel, or they didn't want the property. It's fine. There's nothing. They're not going to be able to force you to do anything. So don't worry about that. You just send that cancellation. That's all you need to do. There's no escrow involved yet.
So me as the listing agent completes the cancellation form on behalf of the buyer's agent who did not respond.
No. You're just canceling it, because if you look at the form, and I'll bring it up again. If you look at the form, it says if seller is unable to provide a cancellation by this specific date, either party can cancel. So when you get to that date, if you're not canceling, if you're not accepting their offer, or they're not accepting it, you just send cancellation instructions. No one's going to argue that.
Got it.
Okay. All right, good. I like it. We got started right away with a good discussion. Anybody else? Let's go. Who's next? We got a problem with a counteroffer that you got. A question about writing your offer. An issue in the middle of a transaction and how you negotiate it, and what forms do we use to negotiate that. Anything like that, please bring it up.
I have another question.
Perfect. Lulu's my star student. Go for it. All the questions you have, bring them.
Okay, on the new RPA, I get confused as to, there's a section on there about not where you remove the appraisal contingency, but on the part where it says something about that offer price, or
You're talking about so paragraph, and I'll share right now. Again, look at this. I'm on it. I'm ready for you guys. So you should be looking at the RPA right now, and
Right.
I think what you're talking about is right here, which is paragraph 3L2.
Yes, that right there. I get confused on that, Kyle. I'm like,
Okay.
okay.
No, and that's understandable, right? We're still like, I mean, really, if you guys think about it, we're only 5 months, just almost 6 months into using this contract. So there's going to be a lot of confusion and a lot of things that are, getting in our way or scaring us, or we're not using correctly. So the appraisal contingency. So this box is what throws everybody off, and it throws off a lot of people. So the appraisal contingency says appraisal contingency based upon appraised value at a minimum of purchase price. Right. So let's say for this example, I offered $700,000. Okay. So if I didn't check this box and left my appraisal contingency in place, it would only be this part that we would be concerned about, right? Appraisal contingency based upon appraised value at a minimum of purchase price. So my appraisal contingency would be subject to it appraising for $700,000. Okay.
Right.
But let's say, for example, that the property was listed for $650,000. Right? And I'm writing this off for $50,000 over asking price, but I only really have $25,000 extra dollars to make up the gap. Right? So I'm assuming that the property, even though it's listed at $650,000 and I'm offering $700,000, I'm assuming that there's probably a chance it can appraise for $675,000. So because I only have that $25,000 to make up to the $700,000, I would check this box and then write $675,000 in that space, which means that as long as the property appraises for at least $675,000, even though my offer is at $700,000, I can't use my appraisal contingency to back out. So I still have one, but it's limited to the price that it has to appraise for. So it means that even though I'm offering you $700,000, I don't need it appraised for $700,000. I only need it to appraise for $675,000, and then I'm still committed to the purchase because I have that $25,000 cushion that I'm sitting on. If I had the whole $50,000 to make up between the offer price and the sale, between the offer price and the list price, then I would put $650,000. So that's all I needed to appraise for. I just needed to appraise for your list price, which is fair. Right? If I'm the buyer's agent, I say, listen, we're writing over, we're okay with that, but we have an appraisal contingency that says that if it doesn't appraise for your list price, we have the right to back out. It's fair. And that's what this box is for. But even listing agents are confused by this when you write it. And I've had agents here bring it to me and say, well, what does this mean, this appraisal $650,000? And then we have that conversation. So it's not going to be like everybody understands. But if you're in that position where I'm writing over at list price and I have the money to make up the difference between list price and what I'm offering, and I still want to have an appraisal contingency that kind of protects me, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the list price in that checked box that it has to appraise for at least your list price in order for me to continue. Did that clarify it or make it more confusing?
I'm still not 100% clear. So this is just for people that say, okay, I have this much to go over and that's it.
Well, it doesn't even have to be just for that. It could be like, I have enough money to pay cash for it if I wanted to. For example, you know what I mean? Like, I have enough money to pay. I'm not worried about it. But what I'm saying is you're asking me to remove my appraisal contingency, and I'm okay as long as it appraises for your offer price or your list price, right? So let's say for any case, like, it doesn't matter if I'm trying to make up just the gap, the $25,000, which is the main reason I would use it. But I'm just saying to the listing agent, you listed this for $650,000. Right? You listed this for $650,000, and I just got a counter from you for $725,000 because of your offers that you have. And you want me to remove my appraisal contingency. Well, instead of removing my appraisal, I'm going to say I have an appraisal as long as it appraises for the price that you put the property on the market for. So if it doesn't appraise for the price that you offered it at, then I have the right to walk away. If it appraises for anything over that, then it's on me to make up the difference between the appraisal price and the ultimate sales price that we go with. That's what we're getting. It's like it's getting back to maybe some accountability to the listing agent. right? I had a conversation with an agent this morning that they offered list price for a property and it appraised for $75,000 below list price.
Oh, okay.
Right? So appraisals are not always like I think that what happens is that listing agents are just like the sellers ultimately. The ones that aren't good at their job are just like the sellers, and they're greedy. And instead of doing their job and trying to price a property, they're like, hey, we're getting offers at $50,000 over. Let's just start at $50,000 over at our list price. And then you get things that don't appraise even for list price. So what I would suggest this is to hold listing agents accountable that like, hey, I'm okay with paying money out of my pocket because I'm writing an offer over. But if your property doesn't even appraise for what you listed it at, why should I be responsible for your mistake? So if I'm okay with paying $50,000 over because you listed at $650 and I'm offering at $700, I'm okay with that. That's my choice. But if now it appraises at $625, well, how am I punished for your poor pricing? Right? It's just a little layer of protection that says, look, if you're confident in your list price, then you shouldn't mind this as listing agent.
So, Kyle, every time we make an offer at listed price, we should mark that box and put the listed price that
If it's over. You only need to mark that box if you're making an offer over the list price. If it's at list, if you're offering at list price, if he lists at $650, you make an offer at $650, it's a normal appraisal contingency. If it doesn't appraise for $650, then we have the right to cancel or negotiate the sales price. What we're saying here is I'm offering over, and I admit that. I'm okay with that as buyer, that I'm the one who's taking the gamble on the price. But I want you to have some skin in this gamble also. So what we're going to base our appraisal contingency on is your list price. So it only has to appraise for your list price, and I'm committed.
Okay, so then if we do that, then we mark also the no appraisal contingency or no?
No. No appraisal contingency means there's no appraisal contingency.
Okay.
If you have a buyer that doesn't care, hey, listen, I don't care if it appraises. I have enough money to make up the difference for whatever the amount is because I want this house, and you're okay with the no appraisal contingency, then check the box, no appraisal contingency. But if you're doing that, if you're adding that in where I need it to appraise for the list price, so that you guys have some kind of commitment here, then don't check no appraisal contingency because then there is nothing. It doesn't matter what it appraises for.
Okay, get it.
Okay, and then since we're on the topic, you gotta remember this part as a listing agent. As a listing agent, you got to remember this part. It says removal of appraisal contingency does not limit the appraisal cancellation rights in the FVAC. The FVAC is the FHA VA amendatory clause that every FHA loan, every VA loan has to have incorporated. Whether you do it, and if you forget to do it when you write your offer, escrow is going to put it in. It has to be in there. It's required. So if I remove my appraisal contingency, right? Let's say we check that box and there is no appraisal contingency, but I'm an FHA buyer. So I've submitted my offer with the FHA VA amendatory clause. In that amendatory clause, and hold on a second, I think I have one. So I can show you guys. Let me open up that folder. Bear with me.
I just sent you a completed one if you want to look at that, use that one.
Yeah, okay. But I do have a blank one right here, so I can jump in. I was trying to be as prepared as possible. So here's the FHA VA amendatory clause, right? The property address, the whole thing. Right here, it says, a direct endorsement lender setting forth the appraised value of the property of not less than this amount. Okay. So you have to fill in. So if I'm writing an offer as an FHA buyer and they're asking to remove my appraisal contingency, then what I'm going to write in that space is my offer price. Right? So if I'm offering $700 with no appraisal contingency, or even with an appraisal contingency, I'm writing $700 in here as the buyer. If I'm a listing agent and the buyer has written their offer over my asking price and their FHA, then I'm going to counter them and include a new FVAC that's going to have my list price written in there. the original 650. That says, because what the FHAVA says is that the buyer cannot lose their deposit, whether they've removed all their contingencies or not. They cannot lose their deposit if the property doesn't appraise for the amount that is written in this space. So if I have 700 in there and it appraises for 695, an FHA or VA buyer is not going to lose their deposit. But if I was smart as a listing agent and I countered back to my original list price, which is 650, and it appraises for anything over that 650, they cannot use this clause to save their deposit if they've removed all their contingencies already. Okay, does that make sense for everybody?
Question.
Yes.
So you made me super smart, and I did that. I countered back as a listing agent, and I put 650 because that was my list price. They went 50,000 over on their offer.
Yes.
You're saying that this only prevents them from losing their deposit, but they can still back out of the contract because it doesn't
I mean,
appraise?
they could if it doesn't appraise for the price that you put in. So, like, you had it listed at 650. It's an example that I was using. You had it listed at 650. If for some reason that appraisal comes back at 645, at 649, they could still back out even though they don't have an appraisal contingency. But as long as it appraises for more than your list price, the 650, they're committed.
Got it. So committed to the contract, not just the deposit thing.
Well, I mean, they can't use the appraisal to save their deposit any longer. Okay, so I mean, they have other contingencies, other things that could, cause the deal to maybe fall out of escrow, but appraisal wise, if they've removed their appraisal contingency, they're no longer able to save their deposit based on the appraisal or the loan contingency if it appraises for more than what's in this FVA form.
Kyle.
Okay. Let's see who's first. I saw Angel and Kevin both unmuted. So,
Okay, Kyle.
okay, Angel first, then Kevin, you're next. So, Kevin, go ahead and mute, and then we'll come back to you as soon as I'm done with Angel. Sure, go ahead,
Okay,
Angel.
Some listings, some properties in the city of LA require a 9A report prior to the close of escrow.
Mm-hmm.
And some other cities require a pre-sale inspection
Yes.
for the same purpose.
Yes.
Where on the RPA or which box applies to which case, to either case?
Oh, good question. Let's do another screen share here. And you should see, let's see, down here farther, sorry. Right here, paragraph 3Q, 5, and 6. Oh, it jumped up instead of doing down here. 3Q, 5, and 6 that we're looking at here. These are the pre-sale inspections. So if I check these boxes, these two boxes here, seller, on 3Q, 5, and 6, then the seller would be responsible for providing any reports that are required and completing any corrections that are in those reports.
Should we check both boxes?
Absolutely. I mean, if you know, like, this is what I would suggest, especially for us to be making sure that we're writing as strong an offer as possible. If you know the city in question where you're writing the offer, right? You know where you're writing your offer is Whittier, for example. Then there's no need for us to check those boxes because we know that the city of Whittier has no pre-sale inspection nor any corrective measures that will be taken based on that inspection. So we could leave it blank. Because what happens is that if I don't do it, if I check a box in a city like Downey or Whittier or Bellflower or whoever doesn't have pre-sale inspections, if I check the box, then technically as listing agent, I have to counter it out, even though there is no pre-sale inspection. It's not like a if applicable, right? It's not like there's a spot to do that. So if, for example, I write an offer in Downey and I ask for pre-sale inspection and the buyer asks for pre-sale inspection and pre-sale report, right, the corrective measures to be taken, as listing agent, I have to now counter and say, paragraph 3Q 5 and 6 do not apply to this contract. I have to do that in my counter. If I don't do that in my counter, I could end up with ridiculous requests. So, a case in point, agent here in this office, I was a listing agent in the city of Downey, in California, for those of you who are watching on YouTube that aren't here. City of Downey, they accepted the offer. It was on our old contract, so they had requested for the pre-sale inspection and the report and everything to be done. This listing agent didn't counter it out. Even, Downey doesn't require it, so they didn't care. It was like, whatever, we don't need it. We had to fight with the buyer's agent because the buyer's agent was saying, well, you accepted that the city was going to do an inspection. We want you to order an inspection from the city. Like, they wanted us to go ask Downey to do something they don't do. And it was a stupid request, but it was still something that we had to deal with. And that the buyer's agent was trying to delay removing contingencies, didn't want to move forward, didn't want to close because they didn't get this pre-sale report from the city of Downey, one that doesn't exist. So even though it's a ridiculous request and it doesn't exist, as listing agent, you still have to counter and remove it just so you don't have to deal with that. So if we're writing a strong offer and we know that the city doesn't require something, then don't check these two boxes. Now, conversely, I'm writing an offer on the city of Compton, and I know that Compton requires a pre-sale inspection, and I know that the only people that can order it is the listing agent. Right, the buyer's agent can't go in and do it. Then I'm maybe on 3Q5, I'm going to check the seller box. But on 3Q6, because I'm going to take responsibility as buyer, I know that that's something that's going to make my offer stronger, or I've already been communicated by the seller that, hey, listing agents told us as buyer's agent, we have to take responsibility for the repairs. Then I could check this box that says buyer is going to be the one who's going to do the corrective measures and remedial actions. Like, I can make my offer stronger. I know it's going to happen already. So guess what? I'm going to take responsibility. You just have to get me the report. I'll do the work. So I could do those things, or I could do both seller. The one thing I can't do is buyer getting the report, because there is no city out there that does these pre-sale inspections that allows the buyer to order it. Okay? So hopefully that answered your question, Angel.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Good.
Thank
Good.
you.
No problem. Kevin, you were next up. What was your question?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, quick question. If you are the listing agent and you get an offer from the buyer's side,
Mm-hmm.
the buyer agent, does the offer say what kind of loan are they using? Are they required to disclose it on the offer?
Okay, well, let me go back to the sharing my screen again, and we'll go back to the RPA. And I think I understand your question, so you could always chime in if I'm not answering it exactly what you were looking for. So here's the loans, right? So if you look at it, it says the loan amounts, right? Here's the first loan. This is the amount of the financing they're going to get. It's a defaulted to a fixed rate. If they're an adjustable rate, you need to check the box. You have to fill in which interest rate they are getting and what they won't exceed, right? So, for example, if the buyer is getting a 5.25% loan, right, interest rate on their first trust deed, then I would put 5.5 in here at a bare minimum, right, because rates are fluctuating and they're going up. You don't have, if they're not, it says buyer by default is paying 0 points, because I think most people are paying 0 points at this point. But if they're not, if they're paying a point or more, then you need to put that in there. Now, here is where we're going to dictate what kind of financing it is. It's by default a conventional loan. But if I'm an FHA or a VA buyer, then I have to check off one of these two boxes. And then it's going to include that FVAC form that we had just talked about. And this is also a form that's for your protection. Get a home inspection. It's another form that comes with FHA offers. If there's seller financing, or if it's some other kind of financing that the buyer is doing. So yes, this is paragraph 3E1 is where it's going to dictate all the terms of their first trust deed, right? Their mortgage payment, their first loan. If the buyer writes an offer and says, "Hey, look, it's $300,000 down, conventional loan," and then it changes sometime during the transaction without the buyer's or the seller's approval, then there's an issue, right? The seller doesn't have to allow them to continue with that loan. Their loan contingency doesn't protect them any longer if they've changed without the seller's permission. A lot of things go into that. So, Kevin, I hope that answered your question, because that's where we would dictate what loans and terms and things like that.
Yeah, I think it does. Just to confirm, it's on the offer. It's on the purchase agreement, right?
Yeah, it's in the purchase agreement. Here we are. This is the RPA CA. It's on the first page. It's paragraph 3E1, so it's really early. It's right on the first page of the offer. Patricia, I saw you unmuted, so go ahead.
If any of this row is not completed, for example, the percentage rate, do I counter it, kick it back?
Yes. Okay. So yesterday, sorry, I needed a water. I was getting a little dry. So yesterday, I don't think Salvador minds me sharing this. He got an offer on his listing. The offer did not have anything in the interest rate spot, and so I directed him to counter it. I shared with him the counter offers that I have, and I know a few of you guys have reached out to me. If you haven't gotten them, I have pre-printed counters that you guys could use. So you have the verbiage already ready. It's in order by paragraph number, everything. So it just kind of makes it super easy for you guys. If there's something you need to counter in a paragraph, it's right there, pre-written for you. You can even copy and paste it out of a PDF. But yes, if I have nothing in here where it says interest rate not to exceed, the problem with that is this contract becomes unenforceable then at that point. Because if I say, for example, they write an offer to me, right, and we all know that rates are, FHA are still, I think, below 5, conventional are slightly above, or, everybody's hovering right around 5. So if I get an offer, for example, that says 4.25%, okay, on an FHA, that's really tight, right? I don't know that 4.25 is even doable anymore. Don't quote me on it, I'm just using it as a number. I get an offer that says 4.25% is the maximum interest rate. And we accept it that way. We don't counter it. We don't say anything about it. And then when it comes down to the final approval for the buyer finds out they're getting a 4.5% interest rate. That's their final approval. Because we stated a 4.25% and we allowed it as they stated it and we allowed it as the listing agent, that buyer could technically cancel the transaction even if they've removed all of their contingencies. They could have removed all of their contingencies. We could be, 4 or 5 days from closing. They've gotten their final approval and the interest rate is that, before they order their loan docs, and it says they're getting a 4.5 or 4.75. And in our contract, we committed to a 4.25. They could still cancel because it's not binding any longer because we've exceeded that maximum interest rate. If I have nothing in there, if it's blank, same thing. I did not commit to a specific interest rate. Now I get to this interest rate and I don't like it. There's nothing that's holding me to it. So we have to have something in there. BPR, for those of you that have been around for a while or have gotten counter offers, BPR stands for best prevailing rate. And a lot of listing agents, a lot of old school agents will either write their offer that way as BPR, best prevailing rate, or they'll counter a buyer at best prevailing rate. The problem with best prevailing rate is best prevailing rate at what time? Best prevailing rate when I wrote the offer? Best prevailing rate when I got my conditional approval? Best prevailing rate when I got my final approval? When is the best prevailing rate? How do I calculate best prevailing rate? And as you can see, really the contract doesn't even allow for best prevailing rate. It says, fixed rate not to exceed blank percentage. It's asking you for a number. It's not asking you for BPR or an opinion or a blank space. It's asking you for a number. Now, if I put best prevailing rate, how enforceable could that be? Even if they get the rate that they were getting from the very beginning. At the end of the escrow, they say, well, wait a minute, I don't think this is the best prevailing rate. And then guess what? If you have buyers with, average credit, are they getting the best prevailing rate? Best prevailing rate to me states whatever's the best rate that's out there in the marketplace. And do all of our buyers qualify for those best prevailing rates? No, they don't. So how could that be enforceable? So it seems like a little tiny thing, but I'm telling you guys, it's super important. And I would not want to be the listing agent that gets to the end of my escrow and my buyer gets to walk because their interest rate was off by a tenth of a point. That would be a really terrible way to lose a deal. And I'm going to tell you something. I've always talked to you guys about this in theory, and I've shared this with you in past contract classes. This happened in reality. We had a listing agent in this office that accepted an offer with a 3% interest rate, or it was like 2.75. It was something ridiculous. And they were insured left, right, and center from the lender, from the buyer, from everybody. Hey, we got this. This is a special deal we're doing for them. They promised, and the listing agent accepted it. And when it got down to ordering docs, they couldn't get that rate. And the buyer's agent said, well, sorry, we're gonna cancel. They were able to fix it and work it out, but they said they were going to cancel because they didn't get that rate. Okay, so Genji, I'm not quite sure who you are.
It's Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer. Okay, so go ahead.
I don't know why she knows Jen like that. Anyway, so I'm currently on an escrow right now, and I actually took your advice because I would leave it blank. So I put on here I think not to exceed 5.875 because it's at over $1 million loan. Well, the buyer didn't tell me that they went ahead and they went with a different lender that offered them a lower rate. And I was like, you did what? And they said, yeah. So I'm nervous. Well, the lender's like moving rather quickly, but they offered them like a 4.625 on a jumbo loan. And I thought, who's offering 4.6 on a jumbo loan? Yeah. But apparently I had made some phone calls, and I guess it is true with Chase. They are offering, no one can compete with them. But so now I got to make that phone call. Do I need to put this, what would you suggest I do? Well,
here's the thing. You don't necessarily have to. I mean, the only time, unless they need more time.
They don't.
Because they're using the same down payment amount?
Everything.
The only thing that's changing is they're getting a better interest rate, but it's still conventional. It's still the same down payment. Everything's the same.
Correct.
You only have to get the approval of the seller if they change the loan type. Like if they change the type of financing, right? Maybe they change their down payment. They change from conventional to FHA or FHA to conventional. But if they change lenders, as long as the program's the same, you're fine. And as long as they don't need more time, you're okay.
Okay, yeah, they're moving rather quickly. They're going to do the appraisal tomorrow, but they just didn't tell me, and I almost fell off my chair. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I mean, that's super dangerous because, and especially when you go with those institutional lenders like Chase, they take longer most of the time.
Yes.
Yeah, they take longer, so that's where it becomes a little precarious. But as long as you're not changing the type of financing, you're okay. You don't need to get the approval.
I said, your offer was accepted based on the fact that you guys were already underwritten. Now you're doing the whole bait and switch, but I go, that's making me, I didn't tell them, I'm thinking that's making me look bad because then the agent's going to be like, what are you doing?
Well, here's the thing. The agent's never, and this is why I say it, the only issue is the length of time. The listing agent's never going to know that they went to Chase, that they're not using that DU approval that they had from their first lender. They're never going to know that unless you need more time. Because as soon as you say, hey, we need to extend our loan contingency because, they're going to be like, well, wait, what do you mean? You had DU approval already. The property is appraised. Why would you need more time? That's the only time you're going to put yourself in any kind of jeopardy is if you say, I need more time, and I need more time because they switched lenders. Then it could be a problem because our acceptance was based on a DU approval from this lender, and now you're telling me you're using a different. That could be a problem. Yeah. That could be a problem. But as long as, if they don't need more time, if you feel comfortable with it, then you should be safe.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, I like this. This is good. I like these conversations. Okay, I got a hand up from Patricia. Go ahead, Patricia.
So going back to the missing percentage.
Yes.
With my example yesterday, the 120-day escrow, which I've recommended against, and she's agreed, so we're good with that. Do you think that agents are doing this and leaving it blank on purpose? to be able to back out? Because if I would have been at 120 days and my thing is missing and they backed out, I would be super upset.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're leaving it blank because they're being sneaky about it, because I would tell you that besides the 21 of you that are on this in this meeting right now and anybody who's been to previous contract classes of mine, nobody knows that that's an out. I don't think that that's a tactic, leaving it blank. I think that's lazy, and it's a lack of knowledge on how the contract works. That's all. And a little mean. I shouldn't say lazy. It's a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of knowledge. It's not lazy. It's that. Here's the thing, and I mean, you guys get a little bit of it here in our office, and I'm assuming that those of you that are watching on YouTube that are in other offices and things, I would guess that 99% of the offices out there are first, including ours, our first duty is to train you on sales skills, right? How to go out and knock doors, get on the phones, use your database, past clients, center of influence. Mike Ferry's the same way. Publicly in the training, we're pushing you to go find buyers and sellers. That's what we do. I think that we're a bit of an anomaly in the training that we do and the focus on the contract, and that's just more because of me. That I think most of us have some level of contract training, and if they don't, they take that contract training and they outsource it, right? They send people to their local boards and the MLSs to do the trainings that they do, and even those are very cursory. They're quick because they're once in a while and they're an hour or two. And so it's a little different. So I don't think, based on just what I know from the level of education towards the contract that exists in the general agent population, they're not doing it as a tactic. They're doing it just out of a mistake, an omission, a lack of knowledge. Okay, come on, let's keep going. Let's keep rolling. We're almost done. We're in the home stretch now. We got 15 more minutes. I know you guys have more questions or more issues. If you don't, I have something I want to show you. It's not technically contract related, but it's a conversation that I have with agents a lot. So if you guys don't have any other questions, I want to make sure that we get to all the questions first. No? All right. I don't see anything in the chat. Yes, go ahead, Lizette.
Okay, so we're talking about the percentage, and if the buyer's agent does not put one in and we counter that back, do we counter the percentage that it's at right now, or do we have them put it in?
No, well, you could do two things. I always suggest that because they didn't know to do it prior, which means they're probably still not going to do it correctly. So what I would say, okay, look, on the average commission, the average percentage right now on a conventional at this point, as maybe I call my lender and say, hey, if I'm an average buyer, right, what's my interest rate going to be on a conventional, just ballpark? And they tell you, it's, 5.15 or something. I'm going to add a quarter or a half, and probably because I'm countering it, I might add a half, right? So I might go from 5 to maybe 5.75, or 5.5, or 5.25 to 5.75, just because they didn't do it, and I'm protecting. My job is to protect my seller, not the buyer. So I'm going to maybe bump it up a little bit higher than the 0.25%, but I'm gonna state it, right? So if I know that loans are somewhere between 5 and 5.25, then I'm gonna make it 5.75. Just to protect myself and say, hey, if you're really committed, you're committed to a 5.75 interest rate to purchase it. I know that they're probably not going to get that interest rate, but what I'm trying to do is make sure that if that fluctuation goes above the 1.5, 1.2, 5.25, it goes past that number, that they don't have a way to escape, that they're committed to the purchase. The other way, so I could state that I would be, buyer agrees to accept a maximum interest rate of, and then I'm going to pump a number in there, and that's it. Or I could do, buyer to submit their maximum interest rate for their first trust deed prior to acceptance, but then it's extra steps, right? But I could do that too. My preference is I'm just going to tell them what interest rate they're getting. And right now in a seller's market, in the market you're in, with the offers you're getting, even though the multiple offers are less, with the offers you're getting, you have the ability to do that and not lose buyers. So hopefully that answers your question,
Yes.
Lizette.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so real quick, because we're almost done here, and it doesn't look like anybody's jumping on with a question. I want to show you guys something really quick. So I'm going to share my screen again. So for those of you guys that are using the zip forms for their signatures, right, to send out for digital signatures, you're not using DocuSign. I want to show you something. So I'm just going to go into this transaction that I have saved, which I use to add all of our contracts for the training classes. I want to go down here to the buyers that are in. And for those of you guys that are doing electronic signatures for trusts, for probates, for LLCs, there's a step that you need to do when you're looking at the transaction parties. So, for example, let's just say there's only buyer one, and this is my family trust that is going to be the buyer on the property, or the seller, either way it works. You have this information where it shows their role and their emails and all that stuff that you put in. If I'm going to be doing electronic signatures through there, the problem is if I don't do this next step where you see here it says signing representative, if I don't do that, when I send it out for electronic signatures, it's going to show even though I spelled this wrong, it's going to show this on the signature line, Estrada Family Trust, when I sign it. And there's an issue with that because that's not who's signing it. Who's signing it is the representative of that trust, whether it be the successor trustee or the original trustee, right? The person that sold the house, that owns the house. I have to put that name in here. And when I do that and save it, right, I have that signing representative. When I go to do an e-sign, and I choose this purchase agreement, right, as part of my signature, and I go on to send it, and I say this is only for buyer number one, right, and I close it, so you have buyer number one. It shows my name as buyer number one, even though the buyer is the trust. Oh, there's an error with it, of course, so I'm trying to show you guys something. Okay, what's going on here? I don't want, oh, this is not working for me. Great, of course it's not. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys something, and now it's not going to work for me. But what will happen then in that case when I have that signing representative, when they sign their name on behalf of that trust or that LLC, it'll have their name, their signature. It'll go to their email. Okay, so it's a little cleaner. And I had a conversation. The reason I brought that up is because I had a conversation with an agent earlier this week about that because they had signed stuff. They had my mind went blank. I'm having lots of senior moments today. They had a power of attorney where a daughter was signing on behalf of a father, and they had the father's name as the signature, and we need to fix that. So that's why I wanted to show you guys that. So sorry it didn't work, but just know that in your transaction, and I can go back to the transaction, in your transaction, you can dictate that there is a signing representative. And so just make sure that you're doing that. So down here when you go to the buyers and you go into those sections for each one of the buyers, you add who's the signing representative on behalf of that buyer. All right. Oops, let me see. I shared it and I didn't share it. Okay, so I see Patricia has her hand up, so we'll do one last question before we end. Go ahead, Patricia.
So in the screen you were in when you were selecting to send them an email, there was an option called digital signature.
Yeah.
In the drop down, do you prefer digital or do you prefer docu, which is the second option in the drop down?
Well, let me see. Let's go back to what you were talking about here. So we're going to go to e-sign, and we're going to pick that. We're going to close it. Oh, what happened? What happened? Everything is just not working for me today. Let's go back in. We're going to do a new e-sign. We're going to choose this form. We're going to close it. We're going to go to...
Right
You're
there.
talking about this?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is DocuSign if you have a DocuSign account attached to your zip forms. This digital ink is the one that's the default that comes with zip forms. So if you don't have a DocuSign account that's linked to it, don't pick this. You leave it with digital signature, the digital ink.
I think.
Okay. All right, guys. So I think that should do it for today. I feel like that was as successful as I expected it to be. And I appreciate you guys that participated and asked questions. And for those of you that didn't and were here listening, I'm hoping that helped you with some issues that you're dealing with. So I really appreciate you guys being here and participating. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon. So you guys have a great day. Be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.